Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. If you want to be a true pal and support me, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by the almighty GG. Management fined me for being a considerate neighbor, so I made life difficult for them with my payments of the fine. I live in an apartment building where everyone gets one assigned parking space per apartment as standard. You can pay for an extra one, but we don't need that. Due to a history of bad parking in the car park, they introduced a rule whereby you could be fined if you don't park in your allotted parking spot. Now, my parking space is at the end of a row. On one side, I have a wall about 1.5 meters away from the end of my parking space. On the other is the car belonging to the person who lives directly below me in the building. My under neighbors are a family with 3 young children. Knowing how difficult it can be to get all of their kids into the car seats, I have 2 of my own, I've generally given them a bit of space and parked a little outside the line on the opposite side. Remember, next to me on the opposite side of my parking space is a wall. There's no reason for anyone to walk next to my car at that point. This is something I've been doing for months. I understand the need to enforce the rule where cars interfere with other parking spots or walkways, but for me, parking a little outside the spot affected nobody other than my neighbor who was given more space to get their kids into the car. I walked down to my car recently to see a note from the management office telling me I had been fined. I went to speak to them, and sure enough, it was for parking outside of the space. I tried to explain to them that it was to help my neighbor and that nobody could be inconvenienced, but they told me rules were rules and that there was nothing to do about it. I had a fine of $60 and had 40 days to pay it. Being quite riled up, I went through the relevant contract and was dismayed to find that they were indeed correct. There was absolutely nothing I could do about it. I did, however, note that there was a statement in the contract stating that every single payment received by the management company had to receive a written receipt signed for by the management company within 2 working days. There was also no rules about me having to make payment of my fine in a single deposit. So this is where the malicious compliance comes in. By this point, there were 37 days remaining to pay the fine, so I divided the $60 by 37 and set 37 recurring payments of $1.63 daily for the time remaining with my bank, which was very little effort. After a few days had passed, I went to the management office asking for my receipts. They told me that they would provide my receipt upon full payment, to which I respond that the contract was quite clear. They must provide a written receipt for each and every payment, not for each and every fine, and that they were already overdue my first receipt by a day. They tried arguing with me, but it was completely clear from the contract. So every couple of days they had to fill out receipts and then walk them over to my letterbox. I've continued to give my neighbor some extra space by parking slightly over the opposite line, but as of yet have not received another fine. If you figured this route was annoying enough, would you chance it on them not charging you another $60? Or would the idea of having to keep up on this charade kind of get tiring after a while? Let me know if you think it's worth it in the comments down below. This next story is by Dorientalis. Jim won't cancel me and makes me read my contract. So around July of last year, I'm coming up on the end of my contract for a big national gym chain that, let's just say, you can visit anytime. So I try and call and get directions to cancel and get a voicemail box that's full. I call their 800 number and I'm told only the local office can cancel me. I call my bank and ask if I can block auto debit, but because it's a check debit, they can only block a specific amount, and there's a fee. I scan my contract and it says I have to cancel in writing with 30 days notice regardless of my contract end date. I'm pretty furious at this point because the gym was closed completely due to COVID and I was wasting money. I hadn't been too concerned while my contract was going, but now I just wanted to end my association with them. I write the letter with my membership number, email, and phone number and send the letter certified with my fob. 2 months later, I notice I'm still being charged and they've billed me an additional $60 for my annual access fee. Now I am livid. I find the customer service email and explain the situation with specific dates of calls, letters, and attempted visits to the office. I ask that my membership be canceled and a refund for the past several months and the annual renewal. I receive a rather curt response saying they'll start my cancellation, but I'll have 1 more monthly charge because there's a 30-day notice. I respond asking them to read my message and see that's already what I did by mail. Apparently, the local manager's been letting mail pile up as they don't even have someone at the office part-time. No one has seen my letter. I say this to the email rep. He/she asks me to read my contract and states that even if I can demonstrate the letter was sent, I would still be on the hook for the 30 days and the annual fee. She says I need to read my contract if I have any questions, and I do. Turns out, near the end of this very long document is section 20.1, which states the following: unexpected events. We're not responsible if members cannot use our club because of an event caused by a natural force, such as a fire or a flood, or a road or building closure, or something similar beyond our reasonable control. If this continues for more than 30 days, then either you or we may cancel this agreement immediately by written notice. No fee will apply. So I respond with this new knowledge I have and point out the gym had been closed 90 days prior to my original letter and even greater than my email cancellation request. I also threaten the following if they don't refund me back to my original contract end date. 1. I'll pay people I know to picket their gym. 2. I'll hand out flyers telling people about this provision of the contract so others in the middle of contracts will be able to cancel without a fee. 3. I'll publish an article in our local online newspaper about the trouble I've had offering advice to others. And I make it clear that I have all the documentation, including phone statements, to prove it's all true. 3 days later, I was called by a regional director with an apology and a full refund of over $240 that had been inappropriately taken, and a little extra. For those wondering, I'm sharing this now because I understand many people in California, where the lockdown was more strict, have gone through this and they deserve to know how to not be abused. And remember, if someone tells you to read your contract, do it. They sure do make it pretty uninviting to read those contracts though, don't they? Small font size, paragraph after paragraph on multiple pages of just pure black on white text. Bonus points if their printer's running low and it's all kind of smudged and faded, or looks horribly scanned or something. That said, you most probably could find some kind of loophole if you do some digging. This next story is by T for Tears. 50 grams over the weight limit at the airport? I guess I'll eat them. This happened a couple of days ago. For Americans, 50 grams equals 1.76 ounces, 200 grams is 7 ounces, 23 kilograms is 50.7 pounds. So when I travel by plane, which happens about 2 or 3 times per year, I'm usually quite conscious about the weight of my luggage because of how much you have to pay if it exceeds the limit. This time, I put a bit more stuff in because of gifts, but I thought I was fine. I pass the police and get to the check-in, where a woman in her late 30s or early 40s that reminded me of my old history teacher indicated me to proceed. I give my passport, do the usual stuff, and I put my luggage on the scale, which shows 23.05 kilograms, the limit being 23. I was quite pleased with myself while looking at it, thinking I got it just right. But no, the woman tells me I need to pay 50 euros for excess baggage. I look at her confused, telling her it's 50 grams, 1.76 ounces. Surely it doesn't matter. She repeats herself, and we start arguing until she says, either you pay 50 euros or you somehow make the luggage 50 grams lighter. I didn't have a carry-on, so I couldn't take anything with me. At that moment, I remember the 200 grams of chocolate that's sitting in the luggage, and I start smiling. I open the luggage, take the chocolate out, and start nibbling at it with a grin on my face while looking at the woman, who goes from Pikachu face to annoyed. She tells me to hurry up, even though I was the only one in line. So I offered her some, and she just stared at me. I ended up eating exactly a quarter of the 200 grams, and lo and behold, the scale showed 23 kilograms. The woman gives me my ticket while glaring at me, and I tell her to have a good day. I think the worst thing is when you reach the security theatrics and you realize you still have a full drink with you, and the not so overly enthused employee has to go, you have to either drink it or throw it away. And you're faced with a situation where you're like, am I gonna have to really relive my college days and chug this drink right now? Is it really dangerous if I bring a bottle of Mountain Dew with me? Gotta love it. Our next story is by Just Going With It. Manager gets mad at anyone for even the most legitimate reasons for calling off. Now she needs a doctor's note all of a sudden. Okay. So my manager has the tendency to blame everyone for their mistakes, failures, and shortcomings at just about every inspection. Not only has the entire crew been tired of it, it's only gotten worse recently. This is all because of an inspection coming from loss prevention. Well, the store is unprepared as heck. I got my job as key holder not long after getting the job. I took that as a sign that I was doing things right. People don't get promoted for screwing up unless it's the army. They'll humor for my brothers and sisters. That's what's always gone through my head. I dedicated myself to this thought by calling off only when truly necessary. Car died, need to fix, handling rent issues, etc. And so far this totals only 3 times in 7 months. This is a place where people are calling off multiple times a week, and I end up picking those shifts up without complaint. I haven't even gotten all copies of the keys I need, learned what I need to. My training is extremely behind, but I'm expected to know even pieces of their job. I've been asked at times to buy the copies of the keys myself. I refuse to without it going on my tax returns. My boss refuses to put that forward. I've even been pulled into the office and genuinely told to my face that I was the most reliable person hired there. But each time I've had to call off, it's the biggest inconvenience. Thanks, you knew I had no one to work your shift. Well, now I need to find someone to cover you. Great. Really? Right now? This time, I have numbness in my shoulders and fingers for working from a long stretch with no breaks between. I've already discussed with them that I've had 3 shoulder surgeries before. This is even on my application. So when I sent a message saying I had the numbness in my shoulders and I was taking the day off, they told me the one thing I've never heard before. I need a doctor's note. Suddenly, out of all the times people call off, my boss now needs proof I'm not BSing. So I went to the doctor's office, spoke to my doctor, and did some x-rays. Long story short, my doctor's note says, can't use shoulders for 7 days from date. The inspection's in 5 days. And now that we've turned it in, let's wait and see what happens. I think the thing I love the most about stories like this is that more than anything, it actually leads to the person getting the proper medical attention they've been needing the entire time. It's almost like a thank you for actually inspiring these people to get properly treated. And our final story of the day is by Musical Merlin 1973. No car service to or from the airport on business trips lasting less than 4 days? Okay. Once upon a time, several moons ago, pre-Uber/Lyft, but still this century, I worked for a company for which I ended up having to do a fair bit of travel over time. Let's call this company Acme. The original travel policy was pretty good and included paying for a professional car service to and from the airport. This was great because I was flying at odd hours to save the company money and, more importantly, increase face time at the customer site, which was very important. They were, shall we say, cranky. This wasn't even part of my job description. I wasn't supposed to be customer facing. But I volunteered one time to stop in on my way back from a week-long conference to see what was going on, as the system engineer assigned to that customer had more important things to do for months. I didn't know anything technical about the part that was breaking, but I was a manager, I could take notes, and I was most importantly providing the warm body, we care experience. Yay me. Now the airport I'd been using was Logan International. As with most old-time, built-in-the-city airports, it's a pain to get in and out of, more than an hour each way, but airfare saved the company money and generally was more likely to get direct flights while still meeting company requirements. That didn't come to play with this customer. They were just a hop, skip, and a jump away. At some point during my tenure at Acme, some bean counter decided we were paying too much for the car service and that we were no longer to be provided with it on trips lasting less than 4 days. Are you kidding me? I'm either going to the airport really early or really late, or coming back from the airport really early/really late, or both. The last thing I wanted was to be driving an hour plus in addition and stressing driving into big city traffic. Now, I happen to have a regional airport much closer to me, much easier to get in and out of. The airport was real close to the highway. The parking was easy to get to. It was very easy to get from parking to the terminal, short ticket lines, short security line, short distance to the gate, and serviced by multiple airlines. I'm sure you all have them. The only downside is the tickets are generally $100 plus more expensive than flying out of Logan. I'm sure you can see where I'm going here. We may have had a policy saying we couldn't use a car service, but there wasn't anything dictating which local airport we had to fly out of. The company ended up A, paying for my miles to and from the airport, B, $20 a day for parking in the parking garage. Why would I put my car in long-term parking for a trip lasting less than 4 days? C, my more expensive flights. I don't remember how much the car service cost at the time, but I do remember having a discussion with our admin about the relative costs and figuring out that it wound up being a net loss for the company. I feel like unless you're an already established massive corporate entity that can just absorb any cost, making such negative morale-inducing cost-cutting procedures probably just won't end up being a great thing. Maybe not until at least you run everybody else that hates it out and you bring in the desperate people looking for a job that may or may not do a great job. But anything to save $1, right? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.